Welcome to the Stop Suffering in Silence podcast with your host, Denise Walsh and Rachel Timothy.
Hey, you guys. Welcome back to another episode of Stop Suffering in Silence. My name is Denise Walsh, and I'm here with co-host Rachel Timothy, and it is a new year-ish, almost. It's at the end of 2023, and 2024 is around the corner. And so today we want to spend time with you in what I like to call redreaming. We're going to share with you some ideas, some tactics, some strategies for shifts that like lasting shifts you can make in the year 2024. A couple weeks ago, we posted a video called a recap, right, of 2023, because that's a part of the process, right, Rachel? We spent a good half hour. I mean, personally, we spent 3 hours going through our last year, talking about where we've come from, what we've experienced, what we've been able to create, things that worked, things we want to shift.
Yeah.
But now we get to go into what we want to create. So let's share a little bit about why we decided to do a podcast on redreaming.
Well, in my mind, I got to thinking about our girls and, a lot of people, the Christmas season, the holiday season, it's tough. And it's almost like things are kind of thrown in your face here at the end of the year. And even though our girls have grown by leaps and bounds in their healing, in their action steps and all that they're doing, sometimes at the end of the year, when you're sitting alone on Christmas Day, it feels like, this isn't the life I want. And it can be easy to then spiral and get stuck in that spot. And I just think all of us, no matter what our situation is, could use reminders of how do I make this next year one that I'm proud of, that God's proud of, where I'm following my calling and doing, the purpose that God has given me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is a really great time for all of us, no matter who you are, where you're from, what you've experienced, to ask ourselves important questions so we can feel like we're taking steps every single year. I often say if we're not growing, we're slowly dying. And so whether it feels like it's leaps and bounds or it's an inch, movement is movement. So the first piece of the process, and I take my clients through this every year, is to reflect. And so we did that a few weeks ago. You guys can go back and see what we've experienced over 2023. But it's important to take a look back. So number one, you can see how far you've come. Because like you said, at the end of the year, especially if people are feeling triggered or they have had to set boundaries, and this is the first Christmas without a family member that they've said no longer serves me, or, things are shifted and different and it hurts and there's grief. We still want to take a look back and see just how far we already have come.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I was seeing a reel earlier today where the lady had set up all of these dominoes and, each one was progress throughout the year. But then there was a domino where it was some sort of setback, disappointment, and it caused all of those dominoes to fall as if everything crumbles just because of that one disappointment. And I think oftentimes we forget all the good that happened in the last year. So it's good to reflect.
Yeah, absolutely. We overestimate what we can accomplish in 1 year, and we underestimate what we can accomplish in 10. So we can often say, at the beginning of the year, I'm going to run a marathon, write a book, move, all these things. And then when we don't accomplish that in 1 year, we can feel down on ourselves. It can feel like we should be farther along than we really are, when in essence, we may have overestimated what we could have accomplished. And so taking a look back and saying, okay, you know what? We wrote our first collaboration book. We came out with Reflecting Ownership. We had dozens of clients experience growth. Instagram reels and all these things that we're growing to get that we've had speaking gigs. I mean, you just did a reel today that was all about reflecting over this past year and realizing, oh my gosh, we've had almost a travel experience almost every month for this past year. And this is our first full year in business, like those are really exciting things
Yeah.
when we take a look back and reflect.
Well, and I'm going to even take it a step further because you mentioned 10 years. And this January will be 10 years since my first set of flashbacks came through of what had happened to me as a kid and, hitting the lowest of lows and feeling like I think I did. I hit it many times the years after. But I never would have thought 10 years ago that this is what I would be doing now and what my life would be. And in some aspects, it's not quite what I had hoped in some ways, but in other ways, it's far surpassed anything I could have dreamed. And just knowing, I don't know, like you said, the 10 years, you underestimate. You have no idea what God could do in 10 years. And 10 years feels short right now, but 10 years ago, it felt really long when you're in the midst of it. But looking back, even like that, it's powerful.
Yeah, that is fascinating. So not only just look back over this last year, 2023, but like where were you in 2013?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It was January of 2014 when all of the memories came flooding back. So pretty close to when this will air, because this is going to air January 2nd. And yeah, it was pretty near that time.
Wow. All right, you guys. So if you're listening, we want you to do two things. Take a look back on this past year and really think about where you traveled, what experiences did you have, what fun memories did you make, what skills did you learn, what books did you read? What are some of the things that you experienced, accomplished, enjoyed in this past year? You can also ask yourself, like, is there something you wanted to do that you didn't get to do? Because it's also important to say, all right, well, I wanted to lose 20 pounds and I didn't quite. What got in the way? And then we can reassess, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or I wanted to travel more and we didn't. So what happened? What got in the way? And then we can reassess for 2024. But also, as Rachel has shared, a lot can happen in 10 years. So think about where you were at this time in 2013, 2014.
Mm-hmm.
Where were you? And
yeah, what did life look like?
yeah. And my guess is it's probably very, very different now.
Yeah.
So this episode is going to be all about the strategies for redreaming. And so what I'm going to take you guys through is the Dream Life annual plan that I take my clients through. And Rachel and I are just going to discuss it. So this is something that you can do on your own time as you have, pen, paper, and now you have the strategy. So typically after we redream or reflect, we spend some time redreaming. And so what I ask clients to do is to rate all 7 areas of life and assess what life would look like if that area was a 10. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being like fulfilled and I love it and I'm like so in alignment with this area of life, and then 1 being not so much, like get me out of here. I want to shift in this area. And so first we rate where things are now on a scale of 1 to 10. And then we really get to say, all right, what would life look like if this area of life were a 10? So what would family look like if this area of life were a 10? What would finances look like? What would my health look like? What would giving back look like? So all 7 areas are family, finances, friendship, health, hobbies, business, and giving back. And business could be career, fulfilling work, whatever your domain is. If you're a stay-at-home mom, it could be like that piece of your world,
Mm-hmm.
So what would it look like if that were a 10? And so, Rachel, I know when I first met you, you were like 10. Yeah, right.
Yeah, it felt like a joke.
So tell us a bit about how you started this process of really asking yourself, what do I really want?
It's interesting, the mindset, because whenever I first was asked to think of what a 10 would look like, it was almost like, okay, so is this just to show me how I'm not there and how I'm failing? But in reality, writing about it made it feel possible. And I think that shift began to happen within me. And seeing other people, like I did the 90-day U-turn with your group, not the trauma group yet because that hadn't been formed, but doing it and then seeing other people doing it and the shifts that they had already started making, it lit a fire inside of me. And even though like in the beginning, my hope was very, very, very little because hope is scary when you have trauma. There was a little bit, and then it grew the more that I started to take action steps towards possibly getting that area of my life to a 10.
Yeah. Yeah. And a 10, you guys, doesn't have to be like on Oprah with like a best-selling book. Like a 10 can be, I take my kids to school and I
Right.
play every day.
Yeah.
I am eating a healthy breakfast. I take my dog for a walk. A 10 is not a grandiose experience. It truly is date night with my spouse or going for walks with my kids or playing family game nights. Like it can be, the idea is that we're really asking ourselves, what do I really want? Like, what do I really want my life to look like? What? Go ahead.
Well, what surprised me was what I thought I needed was to add more to my life in order to get to that 10. But what surprised me was how much I needed to let go of some things, letting go of control of certain things, but also letting go of certain relationships that were dragging me back down. There was a lot of letting go that was a painful piece of it. But then I got to, it was almost like pulling out the weeds so that the flower could really grow up to its full potential. So yeah, I was surprised by that piece of it, but it's important.
Absolutely. So if a 10 feels super far away for you, then maybe even think of like, what's 1%? What's a 1% shift? What is a 1% like betterment that I would look for? And so the way that you do this is you write down all 7 areas of life and you ask yourself, what would it look like if this were a 10 or if this was 1% better? But then you also want to ask yourself, what do I want? What do I want in my finances? What do I want in my relationships? What do I want in my health? How do I want to spend my day? Another activity I take people through is really identifying their dream day. What does it look like when you wake up in the morning? Are you in mountains? Are you in like near ocean? Do you have a pool? Like, what are you seeing? What are you experiencing? And you want to do this without parameters. So for example, right now, both Rachel and I have young, small kids. And so, like, yeah, we take them to school. Is that like, yeah. And I guess, you know what, that is a part of my dream day as a mom.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be the one to take them to school, to drop them off. So I started saying my dream day is that my children will get up and get ready for school without whining and complaining. So I started writing this all out. And what was so funny is that year, my son started setting a timer and he would get up and try to get ready and beat the timer. And I didn't have to ask him to do that at all. And I was like, my dream board.
That's awesome.
So, like when I say no parameters, you don't want to say, well, it's not reasonable. It's not realistic. Like we're not asking about that quite yet. We're just saying, what do you really want? What do you want your life to look like? What does your day look like? How are you spending your day before work, after work, during work? Are you enjoying your work? You know, all of these pieces of our life. What does that really look like? How do you desire it to be?
And then by doing that, you are doing these little shifts in your brain subliminally where you start to take actions towards that dream life. Things start to happen and you're like, wait, how did this happen? And in reality, you've been shifting a lot of things, taking different actions without even noticing because your eyes were set on something different.
Yes. Yeah. One of the things people ask us often is like when we first started connecting, you're like, I don't even know what I want for dinner. How am I going to know what I want in 10 years or 5 years or a dream 10 life or whatever? And I often will say things like, we don't stare at the problem to make it go away. We want to handle the problem, but in reality, we want to make the problem smaller by staring at what we want instead.
Yeah.
And so what we did is we didn't talk about the pain because I knew you had written a book already. You had been through counseling, like you had done all of that stuff. We wanted to make your dreams bigger than the fear. And so by asking the questions, how do you want to spend your day? What does your dream day look like? What do I really want in all of these areas of life? You are starting to, number one, dream again, but number two, also seeing the ways you are already living your dream life.
Yeah. I do think one thing that, like, as you and I have been growing, we didn't know each other from Adam when we first started working with each other. One of the neat pieces about you was how you went into like studying more about the mind and the brain and trauma and trafficking and psychopaths, not because I'm a psychopath, but because some of the people I dealt with were. But one of the things, like that's your one of the things you've seen work is not focusing on the pain. But one of the things I recognized was in the beginning when I would share with you a hard moment, you were real quick to shift to, okay, but what good is going on? And what I think you do amazing now is you have this compassion that you allow, like in the moment, you feel it with me, but then we shift together to, okay, what's next? And I think a lot of times people want so badly to be like, I know it sucks, but we're not even gonna feel it for a second. We're just gonna go to what's next. And you've taught me the importance of, okay, let's go ahead and recognize this sucks. This hurts for the moment. Like, let's have compassion for ourselves. And now let's redirect and look at the future. That has been huge, I feel like.
Yeah, because it's both and. Grief is real and it takes as long as it takes and it pops up when we least expect it. But we don't have to live there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
yeah, I was talking to a friend today. Yeah, this morning. And she's grieving the loss of her husband who died it was ex-husband who died this last year. But yet she had so much joy with her kids this Christmas. And I was like, joy and grief can exist at the same time. And then at the end of the day, she chose joy to live in, but she felt both in the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So step one is to identify what it is you really want in all areas of life. You're just kind of getting your dreaming muscle working again. And again, it's not huge things. I've had people say, well, I don't really want to write a book, but that's not what this is. This is, I want to go to Cedar Point for Owen's 13th birthday. We want to, you know what I mean? Like, we're just being intentional about how we're spending our time and where we're putting our energy. And then what I have people do after their dreaming muscle has been awoken, so to speak, strengthened, is we pick 1 to 3 main intentions for the year. The reason for that is because we often overpack we're going to do all these a million things when we forget we're also living our regular daily life. We have our work to do. We've got other things on our plate. So we want to shift 1 to 3 areas at a time. And I often say, pick the ones that are going to domino effect and impact the rest. Mm-hmm. So for example, if it's health, if you really want to focus on your health this year, because that's going to improve your relationships, your energy level, your work, whatever, your confidence, then that's a main focus. If you want to focus on a business or paying off debt, because that's going to impact other areas of your life, focus on the 1 to 3 areas of life that are going to impact the most, and impact the rest. Mm-hmm. And then what we want to do is really hone in on one specific goal for the year. And then we even break it down further into quarterly projects and then monthly projects. And so the idea here is, as you take your big vision, I call it VGA goal setting, vision, goal, action. We take our big vision, we set up on our specific, intentional, SMART goal, and then we list all the actions that need to be done in order for us to hit that goal. And then the final step is putting it on the calendar. And I think that's a huge piece to the puzzle that sometimes people miss is, I want to go to Italy. I'm like, well, what needs to happen to go to Italy? We need to pick the dates. We need to figure out where we want to go. We need to find out how much it's going to cost. We need to all these things. And then we actually need to plan it. And that goes for any goal or shift we want to make.
Yep. And it's kind of fun then, like you were saying, with your kids, to do it with your kids. Like, that's one of the things we hope to do New Year's Eve.
Yeah. Yeah. And so what we're doing now, when I do this with my clients, this can take well, like an hour of redream, of reflecting, right? And then another hour or two of redreaming, and then figuring out the actions and then putting it on the calendar. But you can do this way simpler with just a dream board activity, where you get tons of magazines, or you can create it on Canva and you say, all right, what do I want this area of life to look like? And let me find all the pictures that reflect how I want my home to be, how I want my relationships to be, how I want my health to be, all the things. And then you put it on your dream board. And that is a physical representation of what it is you want to create this next year.
That's pretty cool. I still have my dream board from last year, and some of it got marked off, some of it didn't. And the ones that didn't, like, it was okay because other things happened. And, it's neat to keep that.
Yeah, it is. I have a couple stories. My son, one time we did a dream board and he said he wanted to play Minecraft for 2 weeks straight. I'm like, it's your dream, buddy. Do whatever you want. And so for him, we, with my kids, we just say, well, what are some things you want to do this year? What are some things you want to experience? What are, all that. And so we ended up having so many snow days that year that I said,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, Owen, you got to literally play Minecraft for a week.
So funny.
And then this last year, they were balking at me. They were just like, no, Mom, we don't want to do this. This is stupid. And so I made one, but they did not make one last year. And just recently, Owen asked, when are we going to do a dream board? And I said, we'll probably do one on New Year's Eve. And I said, but you guys didn't want to do it last year. And he said, I know, and I regret it. Like, thank you very much, sir. And so we're going to get it back out again and just talk about our goals. We also, what we do is we have our gratitude jar. And so the gratitude jar is basically all the fun memories that we've made over the years. So we try to do it throughout the year. Like Lisa was in town and we went to Sleeping Bear Dunes or whatever, all the fun stuff that we've done. We put it in the jar and then we read through it on New Year's Eve to be reminded of all the fun we had that year.
Yeah.
And then we put it in a big bag and we put it in the closet. And so we have years of these fun memories that we could go through at some point. And then we make our dream board for the next year.
That's so cool. I love it. We started doing the gratitude jar last year too. I went and got a jar, and I think I did it for January and February, and then I kind of fell off the wagon. But I could refill it still. I could think of things.
Well, now we'll go back and we'll say, all right, well, what did we do this year? What are some things that we did? And we'll just remember. Oh, we went to the escape room for Eli's birthday. What are some things we did? And so we'll put anything that we've missed in the jar still.
Yeah. And so that sparks your excitement then for what can we do this next year?
Yeah. And I think it just creates, again, because it can feel like, oh, we should have XYZ or, right. And so it reminds us as a family just the fun that we're having. And I think the goal is for our kids to remember that too.
Yeah. That's special.
So I know that the VGA goal setting strategy, when I just spewed it out, could feel overwhelming. What are some tips you have to make it less overwhelming?
I think I'm thinking back to my childhood or growing up and what New Year's Eve was like and, New Year's resolutions that, failed pretty quickly. And I just think it's the intentionality of setting things up for success beforehand. And it doesn't have to look exactly how you're saying or I'm saying, but writing down as much as possible, planning as much as possible, being intentional as much as possible, encouraging yourself with affirmations, not setting goals that are astronomical and, don't plan to lose 100 pounds this year. Let's, be realistic. But that intentionality makes a huge, huge difference, I feel like. And that's just kind of what you're saying.
Yeah. Getting it on the calendar.
Mm-hmm.
I have a few thoughts. One is, what if you do your dream board and you look at it and you think exactly that, yeah, right, it's not going to happen. You take a look at your dream board and you go, doubt it. So the goal, you guys, is that you create a dream board you're excited about. So if I use this example, let's say somebody's living in a trailer and they put a mansion on their dream board. it might not feel reasonable or realistic or like obtainable. And so you'll look at that and go, yeah, right. So what you want to do instead is put something on your dream board that feels attainable, meaning you want to get excited about it. And if you don't feel like it's going to happen, you're probably not going to be excited to work towards it. So think about things that are within reach, that are within a space where you can go, all right, I can drink more water each day. I can ask a friend to go for a walk. I can, like, these are the things that I have control over. And so if you are looking at your dream board and going, yeah, right, then shift your dream board to be something that's more in alignment so you can feel excited about it. Because the goal is that we don't just say these lofty things, but that we really believe it's possible. And that belief encourages more action, and that action encourages more belief. And it's kind of this cycle. So we want to pick something that we're excited about. So then we do put it on our calendar. And even if it's a stretch or uncomfortable or we're learning a new skill, we're excited to do it.
And if that belief piece is hard, surround yourself with people who believe you can do it. Because if you're surrounding yourself with doubters, you're going to live in that space as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I think community really is something we all need on our dream boards, especially, I mean, I'm so grateful for technology, right? Like, we do all of our programs through Zoom. We have built relationships with women all over the country. But yet, so oftentimes we're lonely or we're bored. I heard a quote recently that said, "You're not tired, you're bored." And I was like, that's probably true. Like, how many of us really just need something to be excited about, a project that we're working on, a race we run, a community that we're connected to? And so think about how you can create that for yourself as well. How can you create, a potluck dinner once a month with friends, or my parents play euchre once a month with people in the community. Like, what are some things that either you could choose to join or you could create yourself?
Yeah, and I think that's huge about thinking outside of yourself as well. Like, some of your intentionality with like what you want to accomplish this year might actually happen more so if you're focusing on other people and how to help them, because you got to be a better version of yourself before you can go out and impact anybody else. And so setting some of those things on your calendar might be a little kick in the butt to get some things in order for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. We started putting giving back on our calendar. My son, when he was in second grade, volunteered at a local like food basket, and they just walked there from class. And it's right by the school. We drive by it all the time. And so we would drive by and he'd say, "Mom, can we go back and volunteer?" And so for once a month, we went back and we volunteered, and then summer came and we stopped. And so we recently went back again, and it was just a reminder of putting that stuff on your calendar and being intentional about it. So reaching out to your church and volunteering or making meals for people. None of that happens on accident, right? It happens because we're intentional.
Oh, absolutely. And hopefully this is getting you excited for the next year. Hopefully you're shedding some of that depression from the last season, Christmas season, whatever has kind of stuck on. You're shedding that, and now you're excited about what's ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's the whole, like, when I say design your dream life, it really is designing a life that you're excited to live.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean nothing, things aren't, like, life still happens. There's upsets. It's still life, but yet you know where you're going and you're excited about it. And so it's this balance of enjoying where you are now and living in gratitude and being excited about what you're going to create. And I think if we're not growing, we're slowly dying inside. So think about what's one shift, 1% that you can intentionally put on your calendar this next year. So next year at this time, you're going to go, whoa, look at all the fun stuff we did. Look at all the experiences I had. Look at the community I've created. Look at how much growth I've experienced.
Yeah. Yeah. And comment below. We'd love to hear, what are your plans for 2024? What do you want to accomplish? What is God putting on your heart as this new year approaches? And I'm excited to see what happens.
If you want to be a part of our world and want to be a part of some of our programs.
Who doesn't want to be a part of our world? Come on.
Come on. But we are inviting you. We have lots of needs within the ministry for support and, sending out gifts or connecting with survivors. As a granny, we've got lots of needs. But if you're a survivor yourself, we're opening up the doors to 90-Day U-Turn come 2024, sometime in January or February. So the link will be down below. So you can join the email list or email us directly, and we'll connect with you to tell you a bit more about how it all works and if it would support you in your growth right now. But I think one thing we found, Rachel, is that once you're a part of a growing, like a community that's growth focused, you don't want to leave. And so a lot of our girls come back and consistently stay a part of things because they miss it if they're not.
Yeah, like we were going to take breaks during this holiday season. They're like, no, like we want this. We want to do this each week. We want to be with our people.
Yeah.
And I get it.
For sure. Oh, one last thing. Okay, so as you are like redreaming and you're getting your vision and then you're setting your intentions and your goals and your actions and you're getting things on the calendar, one thing that I recommend doing is picking one word that will describe like your intention for the year. And so I haven't yet created mine, Rachel. So maybe that's something we can do over this next week, is allow for that to bubble up. Have you identified your word for this year yet?
No, I haven't. But I remember last year, the first of the year came and I had a word and I wanted, what was it? It was something like not lit, but it was going to be like just awesome. Something like it was just going to be, I can't think of the word, but it was going to be a really amazing year. And then I was sitting in the very first church service of the new year, and God impressed upon my heart that your word for this year is actually 2 words: set apart. I was like, really? Seriously?
That sounds boring. Just kidding.
Oh, man. Okay, but listen, it was a year of being set apart. There was a lot of those moments that were somewhat hard, but yet extremely rewarding in the way that I have grown this last year. And it has just been one of those years of being set apart, and it needed to happen. And so I don't know. It was like God had a different idea in mind, and his is always better.
Yeah, I love that. All right, you guys, I hope that this was helpful. I hope you took notes. Go back, re-listen, take notes, kind of create your outline so you can identify your word, your intentions, your goals, and your vision for 2024, because it's truly about creating a life you're excited to live. And no matter what you've experienced, we believe that healing is possible, healing is happening, and you deserve to live a life you love. So, all right, comment below, like, subscribe, all the things, share. We want to continue to get this message out. We've got big goals for StopSIS in 2024, and we appreciate you being a part of it. Have an awesome day, you guys. We'll see you next week. Thank you so much for listening to this powerful episode of Stop Suffering in Silence. If you are interested in booking Rachel to speak at your school, your church, or on your podcast, then please email openblindeyes@protonmail.com. If you are interested in sponsoring a survivor on their healing journey and would like to donate to Stop SIS, then please check out the link in the description box or show notes below, or you can email stopsis@protonmail.com. And finally, if you are currently suffering in silence, or you know somebody who is, whether they're dealing with a current trauma or one from the past, then we will always recommend that you reach out to your local resources and find a counselor that you can trust, because nobody is meant to suffer alone. Have an amazing week, and thank you for being here.